My main thing with this game is I want it to do well because I want people to play it because this game, I know for a fact, is going to change some people. The core question in the game is what if? And there's no way anyone playing this game is not going to ask themselves that question about their own life. I can confidently say that this game is going to do that.
Today, we are joined by a very special guest. Alex Jordan is a renowned actor, entrepreneur, model, deviant. We're about to not just talk with the voice behind one character, or two characters, or three characters, but I'm pretty sure almost every character in the upcoming game, The Alters. Alex, thanks for taking the time to chat.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
The Alters is a game that is, premise-wise, you play as a character trapped on a world that is basically uninhabitable, and you have to survive and get off the planet. Except the only way to do that is by finding more crew. But the only way to get more crew is to clone yourself.
Yes.
And in order to have the right crew members cloned, you have to go in and change your own backstory to then create a clone that would better be able to handle the task given to them.
That's pretty much, that's a very accurate and very well-rounded assessment, yeah. So you create clones who are sort of clones. I think the best term for them would probably be alternate timeline versions of yourself.
Sure.
They all split at different important points in your life.
I'm serious. You stood up to Dad. I didn't. Oh, really? And what did you do? Just stand and watch him take it out on Mom? I thought about stepping in. I was always a heartbeat away from doing it, but when it came down to it, I'd just freeze. Guess I was afraid of making things worse.
It's all about the question of what are those important moments, though? Are they actually moments that are seemingly innocuous and you know, it's a tiny little thing, it's a tiny decision that you made, but it's set you upon an entirely different path in your life.
Right.
And how might you have fundamentally changed as a person? What skills might you have that you wouldn't have had before? So you create these alternate versions of yourself in order to survive on this planet, escape the sun. You are constantly outrunning the sun, you know, a lot of problems and a lot of difficulties to overcome, and maybe you can't overcome those obstacles. You need the help of someone who can.
Right.
Different version of you.
You're doing something that is, I'm playing a character who one version stood up to his dad and one version didn't. So how does that change the two versions?
Yep.
And it isn't like, well, suddenly this guy's gonna sound completely different. It's the same person, just with a different life path. So how did you determine what the different vocalization or characterization would be?
Yeah, so I think what we've done is we've made a choice. We have a stylistic choice. We have different regional accents in America in there. We made this choice. It is a stylized choice. It is slightly, you know, I have read, you know, like in a comment on one of the trailers, someone going, why do they have different accents if they're, you know, from the same place? Well, I've now lived in London for, I think it's 15 years. My accent has changed over time.
Sure.
Like, I have changed my accent completely unintentionally. So there is a bit of that. But equally, when you make that choice, a voice is such an immediate way of, when you first meet someone, getting a sense of their personality. You can get so much of a sense of who they are from the way that they talk. And it's basically a quick and easy way to do that. So we have some alters, maybe, you know, more sort of southern.
Let me prepare a feast for our group to feed not just the body, but the soul. Make everyone feel that even if their material life has to end, their existence will be timeless.
And then we've got, you know, maybe sort of more like northeast.
My bouncer license may be forged, but my Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt, that ain't.
You know, we've got west coast.
Like, if everything that happened to me isn't true, then does that apply to the people I knew too? I mean, do they exist, but in some different version as well?
So we've used different regional accents as well as different tones and gruffness and nasality and things like that. Let's say there's one alter who is, he's a bit more emotionally healthy, you could say. You know, he has a healthy relationship. So we created this voice who, you know, he's a bit more sort of open at the back of the throat.
What? Oh, I don't remember anything from last night, except for waking up in the technician's bed.
Really nice and soft. You know, it's this guy who's just kind of really got his life together, you know? So you just have that, like, it's just softening that at the back of the throat. Another guy who has, you know, maybe lived a bit more of a harsh life, you have that sort of, that gruff in there, you know?
Yeah, I remember the feeling. But then I reached a breaking point. Looks like you didn't hang around long enough to reach yours.
Yes, they have different voices, and like, yes, you might not have that. You know, if you know lived a different life, you might still have the very same voice. But it is going to be an immediate way for the player when they create that alter to immediately get a sense of. I kind of get an idea of who this guy is right from the get-go.
I mean, it's incredible to have that experience, I'm sure, but also to get to be a part of crafting those characters and making them not just something that's written on a page, but something that becomes part of yourself. I feel like that's really unique.
Yeah, totally. And it has felt like, it genuinely felt like my opinion was as valid as, say, Tomek, who's the game director. I always felt like my opinion, if I had an opinion in the moment about a character, we made changes in the text of the game. We made changes based upon, you know, I would go, the way I'm seeing this character going, I don't think that is kind of maybe the sort of, you know, way that he would talk. And Kasia, who's the lead writer, would just be like, yeah, okay, let's talk about this. Let's actually, you know, let's discuss why we think that might be the case, and let's work on it, and let's change some things. And so I made decisions like one alter. So base Jan, proto Jan, never says yes. He's yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. He's always yeah. And then we have the scientist who is very much a yes person.
Yes. Yes.
And anytime he says, you know, you got yeah written in the script, it's like, no. He's not going to say yeah, he's yes, because he's, you know, articulate, he's to the point, it's functional speech, yes. So little things like that, making character choices about the way in which they talk and the kinds of words that they would use was a totally collaborative process with them.
So can you give us any sort of insight into some of these characters, like one or two that you think are the most fun to play?
I love the guard. I'm gonna, like, I don't know how much of this is gonna make it in, because I don't know how much I'm allowed to, like, talk about. I love the guard because the guard he's a guy who is constantly scheming plans, you know, conniving, things like that, you know, is always got something going on, some sort of like scheme going on. So he was a lot of fun to play for that reason. And I felt like he was also the most distinct kind of and separate from Jan and many of the other ones.
Sure.
So I really, really enjoyed him. But then, like, the technician, who I know for a fact I can talk about the technician. I know for a fact that this is fine because he was in the demo. He's the very first one that you create. I love him because he was the first one we did in the booth. He was the first alternate Jan that I got to spend time with. He's also the one who, you know, because he is the first one that you create. You know, the game walks you through the process and goes, here's the situation, you're going to create this alter, and then beyond that point, you can have far more, you know, control, but you will always have the technician. For that reason, he's got a lot more moments and a lot more sort of bonding and a lot more, you know, those moments of bonding that could also be friction. You know, it's the way, you know, you manage the entire game. You're constantly bonding and managing fights and between each other and everything. So he's got more of those. And for that reason, I think it might just be purely the amount of time spent, you know? So you spend a lot of time with one person and you kind of you evolve a deeper bond and a connection to them. And I've come to know these people.
Sure.
It's such a twisted game. Not the video game, I mean the game of being an actor. you create bonds with people that don't exist anywhere except in your head.
Right.
Like, what is that? I am friends with people that aren't real. I can have a conversation with them right now in my head because I know how they would respond in situations.
Sure.
In here, that can't be healthy. Like, that cannot be healthy.
But I would have to imagine that translates into the game and that
Yeah.
I can see the character you've created.
Yeah, it's pretty, and it is really, really enjoyable when you work on any game at all, when you see people reacting to the character and you're kind of going, oh, that thing that I had in my head, through speech and through the amazing work of the artists and the game director and everyone involved, the thing that was in my head is now in your head. And I love that it's now in your head. Or someone perceiving a character that you've helped create, perceiving it differently than you and going, I never thought about that character in that way. I love it. So for that to be the case with this game with 11 different versions of the same person that are all existing in my head, to see and witness, because I love going on people's streams, watching, this could sound so egotistical to be like, I love going on Twitch and watching people play the games that I work on. But what I love is video games are already the most immersive and the most collaborative with the person perceiving the media that you've created. They're the most collaborative. For me, going on Twitch and getting to interact with people playing the game and you know, that for me is just an extension of that.
Sure.
So I love it. So I can't wait to go into streams and be like, what do you think of the scientist? What do you think of the shrink? And hear what people think about them. Because again, they could have a slightly different, based on the choices that they make in the game, they could have a slightly different shrink to someone else's one. They could have a slightly different technician to someone else's one, you know.
Sure.
I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
Anything else you would like to talk about with the altars?
I think one thing that I really hope people get from this game, you've touched briefly on, what if, you know, you create an alter who went back and helped mum? What if you create an alter who went back and saved mum? What if you create an alter who left and never looked back and it was too traumatic for them to go back? At the core of this game, every single yarn has a specific core shared experience, and that is of an abusive household.
I seem to be different. More different, I mean. I think it must be because I branched away at some much earlier point in time. When do you think that was? I don't know. But you all stayed with our parents. For better or worse, I didn't. I ran away from home when I was a teenager.
So when you create an alter, who could have a very different relationship with mum, with the idea of mum, with the idea of dad, actually literally with dad. Things, you know, you can have a different relationship to the scenario. And this game will ask questions of you.
Sure.
And it will challenge you in ways that I genuinely have not experienced very often, sometimes if at all, in video games. This is the first game where before my brain even thinks about, I hope people perceive it well, and but maybe people will want to work with me if they'd like the stuff and I get to do more cool stuff and creating is fun. That's certainly something, but my main thing with this game is I want it to do well because I want people to play it, because this game, I know for a fact, is gonna change some people. We all know, you know, people play games and they go, that game, for some reason, tapped into something with me and it changed a bit of me and it's now going to be with me. Things that stay with you. I can confidently say that this game is going to do that. We had the hands-on experience in Warsaw and I got to chat with some people as they were playing it. And one guy had tears in his eyes because he was going, he was like, I cannot express to you how much this resonates with me right now. And this is making me think about a lot of things that I went through. And it's asking questions and it's really hitting me on an emotional level. And that was the opening hour or 2 hours of the game.
Sure.
This game is just gonna keep piling those things on. The core question in the game is what if? And there's no way anyone playing this game is not gonna ask themselves that question about their own life. For me, this is a really important game for people to play for that reason. Like, I can't wait to see the way in which people go, this game positively impacted my life. There's maybe something that I haven't addressed in my life for a while and I should have addressed, and this game made me address it. Or there's ways in which I could have thought about a scenario and I was just so set in going, no, this is what happened. This is, your personal perception of that. This game will go, okay, well, what if you thought about that moment from a different angle though? And people might go, okay, maybe I do see the perspective that other person was coming from. That's the core fundamental of this game. Yes, there's the game mechanic objectives, the things you have to do. But at the end of it all, the most simple mechanic is getting you to ask some questions about yourself. And that's really cool. And that I can't wait for. And I think is really exciting.
Thank you so much for taking
Pleasure.
the time to do this. Alex, before we go, is there any cool stuff you're doing right now? Anything you want to plug that isn't the altars?
That is in the altars. Natural 6 is a fun D&D actual play series that I do with the wonderful Ben Starr, who you know well. I mean, Ben Starr.
That guy.
Who would want to spend hours, tens, hundreds of hours of your life? Who would want to wake up to a group chat this morning because you're in a different time zone to see like 120 unread messages? Who would want that? Ben Starr, who is Clive in Final Fantasy, Doug Cockle, who is Geralt in the Witcher games. We've got Harry McIntyre, who is Noah in Xenoblade Chronicles. Aoife Wilson, who was at Eurogamer, is now at Larian. The wonderful Holly Bennett, who was PlayStation Access. Many people probably know her from PlayStation Access, and is now at Square Enix. And we play Dungeons & Dragons, and we have fun. It's just a laugh. So if you want to come check us out, we're Natural 6.
I'm on a Kickstarter. It's pretty good, y'all. It's good enough that I'm like, here, take my money. Yeah.
And I play as a kobold rogue called I. We came up with I basically decided early on that I didn't want kobold culture to have any sort of names. It's simply I, me, you, we, them.
Right.
It's that, right? Which has just been a nightmare for Harry, for our DM, and we have established within it to make it clear. The phrase is I, the character, not the me, or I, the me, not the character. That's how we kind of make sure it doesn't get too confusing.
You like making things difficult, don't you?
Trixie.
Right, of course. Be sure to check out The Altars when it releases this year, 2025. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to play it. If you need like a little, hey, what's this about? Feel free to come watch. It's going to get real weird. I'm going to purposefully try to push every button that I can and see where it takes us. Because now that I know I can piss people off, I want to see the collapsed version of it. I need to know what happens. So tune in for that. That's going to be a treat. Alex Jordan, thank you so much.
A pleasure. Thank you very much.